The stars over the Carval system blinked cold and distant, but the light they cast was all that remained of worlds long shattered by war. For over 100 years, the galaxy had been locked in a conflict so vast and relentless that entire civilizations had been erased like footprints on sand. The Zarketh Dominion and the Allied Coalition, once promising alliances of peace and progress, were now nothing more than opposing forces locked in a cycle of blood and fire. In the Coalition, war room aboard the massive command ship Valiant Dawn, screens flickered with battle reports and shifting front lines. The air was thick with tension. Exhaustion carved deep lines into every officer's face, and hope was a word rarely spoken. "We've lost another colony to the Dominion," Admiral Sarn's voice was low and bitter. 300 million, dead. Our reinforcements won't arrive for weeks. His gaze lingered on the holographic map, where red blots marked fresh devastation. "We need a new strategy." A young aide approached nervously, holding a small data crystal. "Admiral, there's an incoming transmission from an unregistered source." The room fell silent. Unregistered meant unknown, and unknown meant risk. The communication officer keyed it in, and an image flickered to life. A human standing tall and resolute against the backdrop of Earth's blue-green surface. "I am Ambassador Lena Cross, representing the planet Earth." The human's voice was steady, carrying a confidence that surprised many in the room. "We wish to offer our assistance in ending this war." Murmurs rippled through the officers. Earth? That backwater planet had barely scratched the surface of space travel. They had no standing fleets, no combat experience. How could they hope to influence a war that had consumed so many great powers? General Velcra of the Valari delegation leaned forward, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Ambassador Cross, with respect, what can a fledgling species like yours contribute to a war of this scale? You've barely escaped your own internal conflicts." The human smiled, a flash of steel, beneath the calm. "Our history is violent, yes, but it has forged something else. Resilience, adaptability, and a refusal to surrender. We believe the galaxy deserves peace, and we intend to help achieve it." The coalition leaders exchanged skeptical glances, but behind the doubt was a flicker of curiosity. They had tried diplomacy, brute force, technological escalation. None had shifted the balance. Maybe it was time to listen. Over the next days, the humans were allowed to observe, carefully escorted to the front lines. They moved with an unfamiliar energy, taking in every detail, every weakness in the battle lines. Unlike others, they did not dwell on fear or protocol. They calculated risk and acted swiftly. Captain Reynal Ortiz led the human contingent. Tall, with a sharp gaze and a scar tracing his jawline, he had fought in Earth's scattered conflicts and understood chaos better than most. "War isn't about perfect plans," he told his team. "It's about seizing moments others miss." The aliens called it reckless. Humans called it instinct. The war dragged on, but the presence of humanity introduced a new variable. Enemy. Commanders whispered warnings to their soldiers. "Watch for the humans, they bring the storm." In a quiet briefing room deep within Valiant Dawn, Admiral Sarn reviewed footage from a recent patrol. Human soldiers darted through ruins, not retreating when pinned, but pressing forward with audacity that defied all logic. "Those soldiers fight like wolves," Sarn murmured. "Like they've nothing to lose but everything to gain." Lena Cross stepped beside him, eyes gleaming with something beyond hope. "We've survived much worse. Give us a chance. The galaxy needs us." And in that moment, the endless war, worn and weary, flickered with the possibility of change. The humans weren't soldiers in the Coalition's eyes. Not yet. They were observers, novices granted the rare privilege to witness battle but forbidden to fight. The galaxy's veterans watched with a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and something deeper, unease. From their vantage points on the fringes of war-torn worlds, the humans moved differently. Their eyes weren't clouded by centuries of entrenched tactics or endless caution. Instead, they studied every skirmish, every failed assault, and every strategic misstep like scholars dissecting an ancient text. Yet beneath their methodical analysis was something unquantifiable, a restless hunger to act. Captain Reynal Ortiz paced in the cramped observation deck aboard the Coalition cruiser Resolute. eyes scanning the data streams and live feeds. The eye, battle raging below, was familiar in its devastation, but new to him was the way his people approached it. "We don't just watch," Ortiz said quietly to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Maya Chen. "We learn, and when the moment comes we act," Maya nodded. "But the command wants us to wait. We're supposed to be observers." "That's what they think." Ortiz's jaw tightened. "But war doesn't wait for permission." On the distant plains of Nara Prime, Coalition and Dominion forces clashed in a muddy, grinding stalemate. The Coalition's Valari troops fought defensively, holding trench lines and awaiting reinforcements. Nearby, a small human reconnaissance unit moved stealthily through the shadows, eyes sharp, weapons ready. Private Samir Khalid crouched behind a shattered wall, breathing steady despite the thunder of artillery. "Why don't they just charge?" he muttered to his squadmate Lena Park. "They're waiting for orders. Coalition way," Lena replied. "We don't." A sudden explosion shattered the calm. Where the Valari hesitated, the humans surged forward, flanking the enemy positions with ruthless speed. Their assault was chaotic yet precise, disorienting the Dominion soldiers and forcing them into retreat. Back on Resolute, the observers leaned forward as streams of sensor data flooded the room. The humans' movements were raw but effective, their aggression catching both allies and enemies off guard. Commander Velcro frowned. "They act without coordination. Such recklessness will cost lives." Admiral Sarn, watching silently, said, "Or win battles no one else dares to try." Rumors began to swirl among the Coalition ranks. "The humans bring the storm," some whispered. "When they enter a fight, nothing is the same afterward." The Zarketh Dominion was not immune to these whispers. In the shadowed halls of their warship Obsidian Fang, Commander Threx studied intercepted footage of human squads dismantling entrenched positions. "They are unpredictable," Threx growled. "They do not fight like any species we know. This is dangerous." In truth, the human style was born of desperation and experience. Earth's history was a patchwork of conflict, rebellion, and survival. Their wars were fast, brutal, and brutalizing, teaching them lessons others had forgotten. Adapt quickly or die. Lieutenant Maya Chen reviewed battle logs with sharp eyes. "They're not just fighting, they're learning, evolving mid-battle." "Captain," Ortiz nodded. "We don't have the luxury of centuries. Every mission teaches us what works, what kills, and what saves." Yet not all Coalition leaders embraced this approach. Many saw humans as reckless, a liability to be controlled. The aliens were masters of long-range strategy, diplomatic maneuvering, and elaborate protocols. The humans threw caution to the void. That tension came to a head during a Coalition Council meeting on the Valiant Dawn. Ambassador Lena Cross stood tall before the assembled leaders. "We ask only for a chance to prove ourselves, not with words, but with action." General Velcro's voice was sharp. "Your species has no battle experience on this scale. Your impatience will get you killed, and get others killed with you." Cross met his gaze steadily. "Better to die fighting than to watch the galaxy bleed forever." Her words stirred something in the room. For all the war-weary pragmatism, a flicker of hope glimmered in tired eyes. Weeks passed. The humans continued their observations but pushed the boundaries, sending in small teams to test enemy lines, gather intel, and sometimes, if the opportunity arose, to disrupt. Each operation left the Coalition with growing respect and fear. The KO Dominion scrambled to respond. Their commanders recalibrated defenses, wary of the new variable. "The humans do not follow our rules," Commander Threx snarled. "They fight like the wild storms on Earth, fast, unpredictable, and devastating." Back on Nara Prime, human squads conducted lightning raids, destroying supply lines, capturing prisoners, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Their success wasn't just in firepower, but in their refusal to be predictable. Private Samir Khalid, exhausted and bloodied, whispered during one lull, "We're not just fighting their weapons, we're fighting their mindset." Lieutenant Chen smiled grimly. "That's exactly it. We don't just want to win battles, We want to change the war. As the human observers returned from the field, their reports sent shockwaves through Coalition Command. Where other species calculated risk down to the last decimal, humans calculated courage and chaos. And somewhere deep in the Coalition's command, the first real question took shape. If humans fought like this now, what might they do, if fully unleashed? The scorched skies of Kasir 9 burned with the acrid scent of gunpowder and ozone. The moon's barren landscape was scarred by endless trenches and craters, a brutal testament to the relentless war that had raged for decades. Amid the endless gray, a single unit of humans known as Fireteam Saber prepared for their first frontline deployment alongside the Velari. Captain Reynal Ortiz glanced over his team. Lena Park checked her rifle's ammunition. Samir Khalid tightened his grip on a makeshift grenade launcher, and Maya Chen adjusted her helmet's HUD. They were far from home, thrust into a conflict that spanned the stars, with allies who barely understood them, and enemies who considered them little more than a nuisance. We move fast. We hit hard. We don't stop, Ortiz reminded them, voice low but fierce. Remember, we're here to change the game, not to play by their rules. The Velari platoon commander, Sergeant Vera, gave a nod. We hold the left flank. You cover the forward assault. We expect heavy resistance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the battlefield, the enemy struck. Zarketh infantry emerged from concealed bunkers, their blaster fire ripping through the air. The Velari tightened their formation, firing disciplined volleys. But the enemy was relentless, waves crashing like storm surge against the Coalition lines. Hold steady, Sergeant Vera commanded, yet her eyes flickered uneasily toward the humans. Without hesitation, Fireteam Saber broke cover. Move! 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 Ortiz's voice cut through the chaos. They darted forward, weaving through enemy fire with a fearless urgency that stunned nearby Velari soldiers. While others dug in, Fireteam Saber advanced, closing the distance with a speed no one expected. Lena Park lobbed a grenade into a Zarketh trench, the explosion sending shockwaves that shattered enemy ranks. Samir Khalid's launcher tore through a heavy weapons platform, silencing it instantly. Maya Chen sprinted ahead, relaying enemy positions back to the Velari via comms, directing suppressive fire with deadly precision. The Zarketh faltered, disoriented by the humans' aggression and unpredictability. Charge, Ortiz roared, leading the final push into the enemy's forward bunker. Inside, the fight was brutal and personal, close-quarters combat where blaster bolts and blade strikes clashed in the dim light. Ortiz's blade found its mark. Lena's rifle covered every angle. The Zarketh defenders crumbled under the onslaught. When the dust settled, Fireteam Saber stood victorious, though not without cost. Samir nursed a shallow wound, and Lena's face was streaked with grime and blood. The Velari around them stared in disbelief. By the stars, Sergeant Vera breathed. They didn't just fight. They tore through them like a storm. The aftermath rippled through Coalition forces like wildfire. Data feeds caught the charge in full, and the footage was broadcast across command centers and battlefronts. The beer, human style, reckless, relentless, and ferocious, defied everything the galaxy had come to expect from warfare. In the quiet halls of the Coalition flagship Valiant Dawn, Admiral Sarn reviewed the footage again and again. They don't wait for orders. They don't hold their fire. They fight as if every second counts, because it does. Lena Cross joined him, eyes shining with a fierce pride. This is just the beginning. They're not here to observe anymore. The Velari survivors shared their impressions in hushed tones. The humans bring a storm, they said, a force of nature that no shield can hold. But the enemy was watching too. In the shadowed command deck of the Zarketh warship Obsidian Fang, Commander Threx snarled as the human assault replayed on his screens. They are untrained, chaotic, and terrifying, he growled. We've never faced an enemy like this. Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of Fireteam Saber's success ignited a fierce pride. Families gathered around flickering hollow screens, watching footage of soldiers who looked like them. Ordinary people thrust into extraordinary war. Social media buzzed with messages of support and hope. Yet, not all were convinced. Within coalition ranks, some officers warned of the humans' recklessness. Their style may win battles, but it could lose wars, cautioned General Velcro. They don't understand our doctrines or the consequences of impulsive action. Captain Ortiz shrugged off the criticism. We understand something else. Waiting to win only guarantees losing. That night, as the battlefield quieted, Ortiz and his team gathered around a small fire, sharing stories and steeling themselves for what was to come. We've made an impact, Lena said softly, but they're already hunting us harder. The Dominion won't make the same mistake twice. Samir cracked a tired smile. Let them come. We're ready. Above, the stars blinked cold and distant, but below, a new force had awakened. One that would change the war forever. The war had always been a slow grind, months of standoff, shelling, attrition, and endless strategy sessions. But the arrival of the humans was rewriting the playbook faster than anyone expected. Coalition High Command sat divided. Some leaders wanted to confine the humans to observation, fearing their aggressive style would lead to unnecessary losses. Others saw in them a chance to break the deadlock. Admiral Sarn, the weary but pragmatic leader of the coalition fleet, found himself caught in the middle. In a private meeting with Ambassador Lena Cross, the tension was palpable. They don't understand our protocols, our caution, Sarn said. Their willingness to sacrifice, it's alarming. Cross smiled, but her eyes held steel. They understand something older than protocols, Admiral. Survival. After heated debate, a compromise was reached. Humans would lead tactical raids, small focused missions where their unconventional style could be tested without risking the entire coalition. Captain Reynal Ortiz and Fire Team Saber were given their first command. A critical assault on a Dominion communications hub, deep behind enemy lines on the desert world of Velis 3. This is not a training exercise, Ortiz reminded his team as they prepared. Intel says this hub controls long-range comms for the Zarketh fleet in the sector. Destroy it and we blind their reinforcements. Lieutenant Maya Chen checked her gear. They'll expect an attack, but not like this. The mission was risky. The Zarketh had fortified Velis 3's surface with automated turrets, patrols, and minefields. Conventional forces had failed repeatedly to breach the defenses. The coalition had resigned to siege tactics, but the humans had other ideas. Under the cover of night, Fire Team Saber dropped silently from a stealth shuttle, their boots sinking into the fine desert sand. Ortiz scanned the horizon. Dunes rippled like waves, dotted with glinting sensors. Move fast, keep low, he ordered. Eyes sharp, the humans advanced, darting between shadows, disabling enemy patrols with swift, lethal efficiency. Where others would wait for artillery support, they adapted on the fly, improvising explosives from scavenged tech, hacking enemy drones mid-flight, and using unorthodox tactics that baffled the Zarketh. Lieutenant Chen hacked a turret's control panel, turning it against the sentries. Lena Park planted charges on comm arrays, while Samir provided cover with suppressive fire. But just as they neared the hub's core, the enemy reacted. Alarms blared, red lights flooded the compound, and Dominion soldiers swarmed in. Fire Team Saber was suddenly outnumbered and outgunned. Hold the perimeter, Ortiz barked, firing his rifle as bullets zipped past. Chaos erupted. Explosions rocked the facility. The humans fought with desperate ferocity, refusing to yield an inch. Their tactics were a whirlwind, disrupting enemy formations, creating chaos in the ranks. The Valari reinforcements, waiting nearby, hesitated. Send the orders, Ortiz shouted into his comm. We don't have time. The coalition command was torn between caution and urgency, but seeing the humans' tenacity through live feeds forced their hand. Fighter squads and artillery finally launched, supporting the strike. By dawn, the communications hub was reduced to rubble. The Dominion's command network was severed, throwing their fleet into confusion. Back on Valiant Dawn, Admiral Sarn leaned forward, watching the victory report with grudging respect. They took what we couldn't and held it, against all odds. Across the galaxy, the human assault was hailed as a turning point, yet it came with a cost. Fireteam Saber lost 2 soldiers that night, heroes who had charged fearlessly into the breach. Ortiz felt the weight of their sacrifice deeply but did not allow it to slow him. "We honor them by moving forward," he told his team. "We fight for the future they won't see," but not everyone in the coalition shared that resolve. "General," Velcro voiced his unease during a war council. "Their tactics may work now, but they risk provoking the Dominion into harsher retaliation. This reckless gamble could doom us all." Lena Cross met his gaze calmly. "Sometimes the only way to end a war is to break the rules that created it." Still, tension simmered beneath the surface. Coalition officers whispered about the humans' wild unpredictability, questioning if they could be controlled once unleashed. Meanwhile, the Zarketh Dominion reeled. Commander Threx convened a war council of his own, his face twisted with fury. "They have no fear, no respect for our strength. We must adapt, swiftly and brutally." He ordered new countermeasures, drone swarms, remote assassination teams, and traps designed to exploit the humans' aggression. Back on the front lines, Fireteam Saber prepared for their next mission. Ortiz gathered his soldiers in a rare moment of quiet. "We're shaking the foundations," he said. "The galaxy is watching. We either become legends or cautionary tales." The team nodded, steel in their eyes. In a war without end, sometimes it took one storm to change everything. The victory at Valus 3 rippled through the galaxy like a shockwave. Coalition forces felt invigorated, their morale buoyed by the humans' success. But deep within the Dominion's core worlds, the taste of defeat fermented into something far darker. "Commander," Threx paced in his command chamber aboard the Obsidian Fang. His eyes burned with fury as reports poured in of human raids and coalition advances, fueled by reckless human tactics. "They think their ferocity will break us," he spat. "They will learn the price of underestimating the Dominion." His response was swift and brutal. Operation Eclipse was born, a covert campaign to strike at the humans where it hurt most, their command and supply lines. Valus 3 had become a beacon of defiance, and Dominion assassin squads aided by drone swarms began slipping behind coalition lines under the cloak of darkness. Silent kills, sabotage, and ambushes became common as the humans found themselves hunted as much as hunting. Captain Reynal Ortiz knew the tide was shifting. In a briefing room aboard the coalition cruiser Resolute, Ortiz gathered Fireteam Saber. "We've stirred a hornet's nest," he said grimly. "They're hitting us where we least expect." Lena Park rubbed the fresh scar on her arm, a souvenir from a recent ambush. "They're learning to anticipate us." Maya Chen's voice was steady, but tense. "Our comms are being jammed intermittently. Intelligence is fragmented." Samir Khalid frowned. "This feels personal now." Ortiz nodded. "It is. We can't just rely on bold charges and shock tactics anymore. We need to be smarter, faster." The humans adapted quickly. Their new approach blended their raw aggression with caution, stealth, and calculated strikes. Yet the Dominion's shadow war wore on their nerves. Supply convoys vanished overnight. Safe zones became killing fields. Every mission carried the weight of uncertainty. One night, a human reconnaissance unit led by Ortiz was nearly wiped out in a trap near the ruined city of Etrax 7. Ortiz barely escaped with his life, his second-in-command gravely wounded. Back, on Valiant Dawn, the Coalition Command debated the cost of the humans' involvement. General Velcro voiced what many feared. "Their presence escalates this war. We are no longer fighting a war of attrition but a cycle of vengeance." Admiral Sarn countered. "They've shifted the balance. The Dominion's panic is proof." Amid the rising tension, Ambassador Lena Cross pushed for a broader alliance. "We must unite all species willing to stand," she argued. "The humans have shown us the way forward, but we cannot fight this war divided." Her words found eager ears among some coalition members, but also stoked the fears of others who worried the humans might become too powerful, too independent. Meanwhile, Commander Threx orchestrated his next move, a massive, coordinated strike on a coalition staging area on the moon Teres 4, designed to crush morale and sever the human foothold. As night fell over Teres 4, the humans braced for impact. Ortiz stood with his team in the command center, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. "Expect everything," he warned. "They want to break us here." The first wave hit like a thunderclap. Drone swarms darkened the skies, missile strikes rocked the base, and Dominion commandos infiltrated the perimeter. Fire Team Saber raced to respond, cutting through chaos with practiced precision. Lena Park covered retreating engineers. Samir Khalid disabled enemy drones. Maya Chen coordinated defense grid overrides. Ortiz led counterattacks that turned pockets of devastation into rally points. The fight was brutal, close, and costly. By dawn, the base lay in ruins. Many lives were lost, but the humans' indomitable spirit had held the line. As Ortiz surveyed the devastation, he realized this war was evolving into something more, something personal. "This isn't just about territory anymore," he told his team. "They want us broken. We need to break back harder." The battle for Teres 4 became a rallying cry across coalition worlds. The humans' courage under fire rekindled hope even as the war darkened. Yet, in the shadows, Commander Threx smiled, coldly. "The storm approaches," he whispered, "and we will be ready." The war had hardened Captain Renal Ortiz in ways no training ever could. Every mission, every loss, chipped away pieces of the man he once was. Yet through the grime, the pain, and the endless battles, his resolve remained unbroken. But at the edge of the galaxy, in the smoldering ruins of Teres 4's staging base, Ortiz and Fire Team Saber faced their greatest test yet. The Dominions. Relentless retaliation had stripped the Coalition's resources thin. Supplies were scarce, morale wavering, and whispers of doubt echoed through the ranks. Ortiz sat in the dim command room, staring at the star map glowing in front of him. Coalition ships blinked, spread thin across multiple fronts. Dominion forces pressed harder, their attacks growing bolder and deadlier. Lieutenant Maya Chen broke the silence. "Intel shows the Dominion massing fleets near the Rylus sector. They plan to cut off our supply route entirely." Samir Khalid's voice was tense. "If they succeed, the coalition forces there will be trapped." Lena Park clenched her fists. "We can't let that happen." Ortiz exhaled slowly. "They want to starve us out. Force a surrender, that's their gambit." The humans had always fought fast, furious, and hard. But this was different. This was attrition, slow, grinding, and merciless. "Admiral Sarnes," voice crackled over the comm. "Captain Ortiz, Command wants a solution. They're counting on you and your team to break the blockade." Ortiz gritted his teeth. "Understood, Admiral. We'll do whatever it takes." But the truth was clear. The odds were against them. The plan was daring. A small strike force would slip past Dominion patrols, land on the remote moon of Rylus, and sabotage a critical relay station that controlled the blockade's defense. Grid. Fire Team Saber was chosen to lead. As they prepared, the weight of the mission pressed heavily on Ortiz's shoulders. "Once we're in, there's no backup," he told his team. "We're on our own." The shuttle dropped through Rylus's thin atmosphere, landing near the relay station under cover of darkness. The air was bitterly cold, the ground cracked and lifeless. The relay station loomed ahead, a fortress of steel and sensors. Ortiz signaled the team forward. They moved silently, disabling cameras and security drones with swift efficiency. But the Dominion had anticipated this attack. Alarms blared as they triggered a hidden sensor. The trap snapped shut. Dominion soldiers poured out of bunkers, cutting off their retreat. "Contact front!" Lena shouted, firing as enemies closed in. The firefight was brutal. Blaster fire ricocheted, sparks flying, shadows dancing in the cold moonlight. Ortiz felt the familiar sting of adrenaline, the sharp edge of survival instinct. But the Dominion's numbers were overwhelming. Samir took a hit, collapsing with a cry. Lena dragged him behind cover, face pale but determined. Ortiz planted explosives on the relay's core, timing each charge with precision. "Get ready to move," he ordered. As the final timer ticked down, a Dominion squad breached their position. Ortiz fought back-to-back with Maya, their rifles blazing. The explosion rocked the station, sending shockwaves that disabled the blockade defenses. Chaos erupted across Dominion fleets as coalition ships seized the opening to break through, but victory came at a price. As the shuttle lifted off, Ortiz looked back at the moon's burning relay station. Samir lay unconscious, his wound severe but stable. Maya placed a hand on Ortiz's shoulder. "We did it. The blockade is broken." Ortiz's jaw tightened. "We survived. For now." Back aboard the Resolute, the team recovered in silence. The mission had succeeded, but the losses weighed heavily. Admiral Sarn's message came through, laced with grim urgency. "The Dominion will retaliate harder. Expect a full-scale offensive." Ortiz gathered his team. "This war is no longer just about battles. It's about survival. Our survival." Lena's voice was steady, filled with quiet fire. "Then we fight smarter. We fight together." But the line between hope and despair blurred. In the Dominion's war chambers, Commander Threx studied the disrupted blockade reports. "They are stronger than we expected," he growled. "But their recklessness will be their undoing." He ordered his commanders to prepare for the final storm, the decisive battle that would either crush the coalition or shatter the Dominion forever. As the stars watched silently, the galaxy braced for the breaking point. The coalition fleet hovered at the edge of the Rylus system, a glittering armada of warships bristling with weapons and hope. Yet beneath the polished exteriors and confident commands, nerves crackled like static in the air. Every captain knew the Dominion was preparing something unprecedented, a massive all-out assault to crush the coalition's newfound momentum once and for all. Captain Reynal Ortiz stood on the bridge of the cruiser Resolute, gazing out at the swirling void. His mind was heavy with the losses endured and the battles yet to come. Fireteam Saber, battered but unbroken, stood ready for whatever the war threw at them next. "Intel confirms the Dominion fleet is assembling in the Gelis Nebula," Maya Chen reported, her fingers dancing over the console. "They're heavily armed and shielded. This will be their largest engagement yet." Ortiz nodded. "Then we meet them head-on." The coalition's plan was desperate, a coordinated strike led by human units to breach the Dominion's flagship and disable its command systems. If the flagship fell, Dominion forces might scatter or retreat. The risk was monumental. Before the battle, Ortiz gathered Fireteam Saber for a final briefing. "This is it," he said. "The Dominion wants to end this war tonight. We either break their spine or break ourselves trying." Lena Park tightened her grip on her rifle. "We're ready." Samir Khalid, his wound healed but his eyes haunted, spoke quietly. "We've come too far to back down." The Resolute launched with the fleet streaking toward the Gelis Nebula. As they entered the dense gas clouds, visibility dropped and sensors flickered. Perfect cover for the Dominion's ambush. Then, without warning, the void erupted in fire. Dominion warships poured from hidden pockets, turrets blazing and missiles streaking like comets. The coalition fleet returned fire, a ballet of destruction and desperation. Ortiz's shuttle dropped into the thick of the fight, weaving through explosions and debris to the Dominion flagship, Obsidian Fang. "Here we go," Ortiz muttered. Fire team, Saber deployed in full combat gear, breaching the flagship's outer defenses. The corridors inside were labyrinthine and silent, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. "Move fast," Ortiz ordered. "Sabotage the command core." The team split, Lena and Samir taking the upper decks to plant explosives, Maya hacking the security grid, while Ortiz advanced toward the bridge. The Dominion crew fought fiercely, but the humans' ferocity and tactical ingenuity pushed them forward. Ortiz reached the bridge as alarms blared and power fluctuated. Commander Threx stood defiantly at the console, surrounded by loyal guards. You are fools to think this will end here. Threx snarled. The Dominion will rise again. Ortiz met his gaze, voice cold and steady. Not if we break you first. A brutal firefight erupted. Ortiz's precision and grit prevailed, and as Threx fell, the flagship systems began to collapse. Outside, coalition ships exploited the chaos. The Dominion fleet faltered and broke formation, retreating into the void. The battle was won, but the cost was staggering. As Fireteam Saber regrouped aboard the Resolute, Ortiz looked around at his weary soldiers. We did it, he said softly. But the war will never be easy. Not while we stand. Lena smiled faintly. We fight. Because we must. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had proven it was more than just another species. It was a force to be reckoned with. But somewhere in the shadows, other threats stirred, waiting for the right moment to strike. For now, victory was theirs. The war had ended in a blaze of fire and steel, but the echoes of battle lingered like a storm passing through. The coalition fleet, battered but victorious, drifted through the stars, carrying survivors and stories of heroism that would shape generations to come. Captain Reynal Ortiz stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, staring out at the vast expanse. The war was over, or at least this chapter of it. The Dominion's shattered forces were scattered, their command broken. But peace, Ortiz knew, was never simple. Lena Park joined him silently. We changed everything. Ortiz nodded. We did. They said humans were reckless, untrained, a liability. But we proved them wrong. Still, Lena said quietly, the galaxy is watching. Some will fear what we've done. Others will be inspired. Across coalition worlds, celebrations bloomed. Broadcasts praised the humans' courage, their refusal to bend in the face of impossible odds. Statues would be built, songs sung, but the cost was also etched deep. Thousands of lives lost, families shattered. In a quiet room aboard the Valiant Dawn, Admiral Sarn received a message from Earth's leaders. They thanked the coalition for welcoming humanity into the Galactic, fold and pledged support for rebuilding and cooperation. Ambassador Lena Cross prepared to lead a delegation to solidify alliances born in war. We've earned our place, she told Ortiz. Now we must build something that lasts. Ortiz allowed himself a rare smile. A future worth fighting for. Yet even as hope blossomed, whispers of unrest drifted through the galaxy. New powers stirred in the shadows, old grudges flared, and the scars of war would take time to heal. Back, on Earth, Ortiz reunited with his family, the faces he'd fought for burning bright in his memory. He knew the war had changed him, made him harder, wiser, and fiercely protective of what he'd gained. At a memorial ceremony, Ortiz spoke to a crowd that spanned species and worlds. We fought not because we wanted war, but because we refused to be broken by it. In the darkest hours, humanity showed what it means to be resilient, to fight for one another. This is only the beginning of our journey. The crowd erupted in cheers, a chorus of unity across cultures. Fireteam Saber gathered, one last time before returning to new roles. Trainers, diplomats, leaders. Their bond forged in fire, they carried the legacy forward. As stars shimmered in the endless night, Ortiz looked to the horizon. The war had been won in 5 hours of furious combat, but its meaning would echo through time. Humanity had joined the galactic stage, not as pawns but as warriors, builders, and keepers of hope. The dawn of a new era had come,